When I was 20, I landed a nannying job for this sweet little baby boy. At the time, I was excited about it. I thought it would be a simple job. Take care of the baby, maybe chat with the mom a little bit, help out however I could. Easy enough, right? But almost immediately, I learned that this job wasn't what I expected it to be at all. The mom, she was much different than I had expected. Most mornings, she would just disappear. She'd sleep for hours in the guest room while I was there, or she'd take off and go on these 3-hour-long runs. Other times, she'd just float around the house while I was taking care of her son. Like, I wasn't even there. No good morning, no greetings, no updates about the baby's night. Very little conversation at all. I remember one morning especially well. The baby was napping in his room, and we both ended up in the living room. I was sitting there studying, reading over some notes for school. She sat no more than 5 feet away from me, eating McDonald's and watching some morning TV show. We didn't exchange a single word for nearly 2 hours. I kept glancing up, expecting some kind of small talk or acknowledgement. Something, but it never came. It was just one of the most uncomfortable silences that I'd ever experienced, and I didn't know how to act. Should I say something? Should I leave the room? I felt like I was an intruder in her home, even though I was supposed to be there. Back then, I didn't have the maturity or life experience to recognize what was happening. I just thought she didn't like me, or maybe she was cold, selfish even. I didn't have kids of my own, and I hadn't been around many moms, so I wasn't at all aware of what may have been going on behind the scenes. But the oddness of it just gnawed at me, that feeling that something bigger was wrong. Well, one day when she was out, curiosity got the better of me. I snooped around her house, and it's not something I'm proud of, but it is the truth. I looked around places that I shouldn't have. I didn't have any specific goal in mind. Maybe I just wanted to find a clue that would explain the weirdness, something to make me feel less invisible in the house. And that's when I found her journal. It was tucked away in a bedside drawer, not exactly hidden, but not lying out in the open either. I stared at it for a long time, feeling this huge internal tug of war. Open it, don't open it, mind your business. But those intrusive thoughts, they won out. I read it. I read the whole thing. And what I found wasn't the smoking gun that I had imagined. It wasn't anything scandalous or dramatic. It was just heartbreaking. Page after page of sadness, loneliness, hopelessness. She poured her pain into those pages. She talked about her marriage falling apart, about feeling trapped and disconnected, about losing pieces of herself that she didn't know how to get back, about what it was like to find yourself in the depths of postpartum depression. It was raw, real, and it knocked the wind out of me. This woman wasn't ignoring me because she hated me. She wasn't cold because she was mean. She was broken, quietly and invisibly broken. I felt sick to my stomach for invading her privacy. And I felt even worse because up until that moment, I'd been judging her in my head without ever stopping to think about what she might have been going through. But after that day, something shifted inside of me. I couldn't undo the invasion of her privacy, but I could at least try to be a better support system in whatever small ways were within my control. I became softer, more patient. I didn't push conversations. I didn't expect her to pretend to be okay for my sake. I just stayed consistent. I showed up. I took care of her baby with as much care and love as I could muster. Over time, we grew closer. It wasn't instantaneous though, little by little, and she started opening up. I think she could sense the change in me, even if she never knew why it happened. We built a bond over the 3 years that she employed me, one that I never could have predicted during that first awkward, silent year. Now, we're over 15 years later, and I still think about it. The guilt of reading her journal is something that I still carry with me. I know it wasn't okay, and even now if someone asked, I wouldn't try to justify it. I crossed a line that shouldn't have been crossed. But I also know that that young version of me was just trying to make sense of something that I didn't understand. I didn't know about postpartum depression. I didn't know how isolating and brutal new motherhood could be. I didn't realize that sometimes the strongest, most together-looking people are the ones shoestringing and masking taping it all together. And honestly, it haunts me a little bit that she had to go through that mostly alone. Her house was full of people, her husband, a nanny, friends checking in on her, and yet she still seemed to feel utterly unseen. I wonder sometimes what would have happened if I didn't find that journal. Would I have kept my distance? Kept feeling rejected? Maybe grown resentful of her silence? Would we have ever built the relationship we eventually did? I can't say reading it was right, but it changed me. It cracked open something in me that I didn't know needed breaking, and that was empathy. Now that I'm older, and I've seen my own friends become mothers, some of them struggling quietly with depression or their own postpartum anxiety, I see it so clearly. The loneliness, the feeling of being swallowed up by motherly expectations, the terror of asking for help and being met with judgment instead of understanding. Back then, I just wanted her to act normal, smile, make small talk, even acknowledge my presence. Now, I just wish I could go back and sit next to her in silence without expecting anything in return. Let her hurt, let her process, without adding any of my own confusion and discomfort to her burden. I know there are people who will hear this and think I'm a terrible person for what I did, and honestly, that's okay. I'm not here to make myself out to be a hero. But if there's anything I've learned from it, it's that sometimes the people who seem the coldest, the most distant, are the ones that are hurting the most. And if you're lucky enough to recognize that in time, you get the chance to show up differently, both for them and for yourself. I don't know where that woman is now. We lost touch after I moved away, but I hope she's okay. I hope life got lighter for her. And I hope she knew, even if I didn't say it back then, that I saw her. Maybe a little bit too late, but I saw her. Okay, buckle up. I want you guys to know that this confession isn't your average wild night at work story. This was some next level shit. Straight out of a horror movie, and I still think about it sometimes when I'm lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling. It was around 2 a.m. that evening, prime chaos hour in the ER. We'd already dealt with our share of nonsense. Some guy showed up convinced a mosquito bite was going to turn into full-blown dengue fever. Standard weirdness. We were all doing our best to laugh it off when the ambulance rolled in. They brought in a woman, maybe mid-50s, morbidly obese. And when I say morbidly obese, I'm not talking about someone just carrying a few dozen extra pounds. I'm talking fully immobilized by her own body weight, skin folding in on itself, limbs that you couldn't really distinguish because the swelling and tissue overgrowth blurred them together. This woman was barely conscious, drenched in sweat, wrapped in what looked like every towel and bedsheet that they had at home. Trailing behind the stretcher was her husband. This man looked like he hadn't seen a doctor since the 1990s, and he was all defensive attitude. He kept insisting, "She walks just fine. She just slipped, that's all." Sir, with all due respect, there's no way in hell that this woman was walking anywhere. She was barely breathing properly, let alone mobile. As we started to move her into the trauma bay, that's when it hit us. The smell. It wasn't just body odor. It wasn't even regular infection smell. It was hot, putrid, gagging in your mask kind of stench. Turns out their version of cleaning her consisted of putting hot, wet towels all over her body every day. No soap, no rinsing, no drying, just soaking her skin with mildew towels and praying for the best. But I gotta tell you, it gets worse. About 20 minutes later, her daughter shows up. She's about 22 years old, same build as her mother, same stubborn energy. She takes one look at the scene and immediately starts arguing with us. "She's fine," she says. "My mother just needs her rest." We want to take her to our usual hospital by taxi. A taxi? I swear, I had to stop myself from laughing out loud just out of sheer disbelief. This woman wasn't going to fit into a regular taxi. And this wasn't about size shaming. This was a full-blown medical crisis. This woman was septic. She wasn't just tired. Her body was starting to shut down. We ran labs right away, and the numbers were horrifying. Her white blood cell count was 32,000. For reference, normal range is from 4,500 up to 11,000. This was her body saying, "We're losing this fight against a massive infection." Her C-reactive protein was 280 milligrams per liter. A healthy person is usually under 5. CRP is a marker of inflammation, and hers was through the roof. Her blood lactate level was 6.5. Normal is 0.5 to 2. And when lactate gets that high, it's a flashing red warning for severe sepsis, as well as organ failure. Her kidney function was crashing too. Her creatinine was 3.1 milligrams per deciliter. Normal is 0.6 to 1. So her kidneys were barely filtering anything anymore. Blood sugar, 389. Well into critical diabetic territory. Likely undiagnosed. Definitely uncontrolled. We tried explaining all of this to the daughter, calmly and carefully. But she was stuck in complete denial. She kept repeating that her mom was fine just yesterday. We didn't even give her the option to leave. There was no going to another hospital in a cab. We kept her, stabilized her the best we could, and prepped for her transfer to a larger hospital with an ICU. But before we could send her out, we had to clean her. And that's something that I'll never forget. It took 4 of us, fully gowned and masked up. As we pulled back the layers of towels and sheets, that smell got exponentially worse. Thick, gagging, like something rotten had been sitting out for weeks. To make this even worse, underneath the folds of her skin were literal fungal colonies. Not just yeast infections, not just irritation, actual mushrooms, growing in the moist, dark folds between her skin. White, yellow, and black patches, all thriving. One of the nurses gagged so hard that she had to leave the room. We soaked gauze pads in antiseptic solution and tried as gently as we could to clean under her skin folds. And that's when she started screaming. I don't mean normal patient discomfort noises. I mean screaming. Deep, guttural, otherworldly howling. She twisted her head around, cursed and shouted, "Don't touch me," in a voice so raw and broken, it didn't even seem human anymore. That's what amplified that horror movie vibe. The worst part, though, is we knew. We knew this woman wasn't just battling infection. She was battling years of neglect. Years of being left in the state by people who were supposed to love her. Years of nobody noticing, or caring, or choosing to step up. We eventually got her transferred, but she ended up passing away 2 days later in the ICU from septic shock. I wish I could say that was a surprise, but it wasn't. Her body was too far gone. Her organs were shutting down one by one. That infection had spread everywhere, and there was no viable route to saving her. This still sticks with me because it didn't have to happen this way. She had family. She had a daughter standing right there in the hospital arguing with us about how fine she was. And that same daughter, you could already see it, was headed down that exact same road. Complete denial, complete unwillingness to acknowledge reality. Acting like asking for help or admitting something was wrong was the bigger shame than letting it fester until it killed her mother. Sometimes I wonder if it was about pride, or ignorance, or fear, maybe a little bit of all three. But whatever it was, it cost that woman her life. I think about that night a lot, actually. The helplessness, the screaming, that smell. You hang on to it, not because it was just gross, but because it was so preventable. That night, we weren't just fighting infection. We were fighting years of silent damage. Physical, emotional, psychological. If there's anything I want people to take away from this, it's take care of yourself. Take care of your loved ones. And when something is wrong, acknowledge it. That's the first step towards acting on it. Pretending it's not happening won't save you. It'll only kill you slowly, and it'll leave the people around you haunted by the things that they couldn't fix until it was too late. Stay healthy, drink your water, and for the love of everything good, bathe properly. "16 years ago, when I was 15, we had two of my friends and their mother living with us for a while. They were going through a pretty ugly divorce and had nowhere else to go. My friends were 14 and 16 at the time, and at first, it felt like a good thing, helping people that we cared about, having close friends around all the time. It made my house feel full and alive in a way that it hadn't in a long time. One night, I was staying over at another friend's house. Just a normal night. Nothing major. But when I came back home the next day, everything had seemingly changed while I was away. My mom was furious. She told me that she had kicked our friends and their mother out, claiming that my 16-year-old friend had made a move on my dad. She said this so matter-of-factly, like it was disgusting and shameful. She tore that poor girl's reputation apart right there in our kitchen. I remember just standing there, stunned, doing all I could to try to absorb it all. I was 15 and I didn't know what to think. Of course, I wanted to believe my mom, but deep down, I knew that that likely wasn't the entire story. Even at that age, I knew there was something more to it. But I buried that feeling. I buried it the way my parents had always taught me to. Pretend, deny, move on. It stuck with me though. Like that splinter in your finger that you forget about until you bump it just the wrong way. Even into my early 20s, it chewed at the back of my mind. Something about it never quite added up to me. But it wasn't until then that I decided to stop wondering and actually do something about it. I found my 16-year-old friend who we had fallen out of touch after all of this. She was now in her 20s too, and I decided it would be best to reach out. I wasn't even sure she'd want to talk to me, after everything that happened, but she agreed to meet. When I saw her for the first time after what had been 7 or 8 years, I don't think I'll ever forget that look in her eyes when we sat down. It wasn't just plain pain. It was almost as if she was holding her breath, like she was antsy to even be sitting at the same table as me. But after a few moments, she told me the truth. It wasn't her. It had never been her. I think that was something that I had secretly already known, but she laid it out to me. She told me that it was my dad. He was the one who made the move on her. Apparently, my friend and my dad had been drinking at our house that night. My friend's mom had turned in early that night, and my mom was pregnant with my sister upstairs in bed, completely unaware of what was going on downstairs. There was skinny dipping involved. And eventually, my friend and my dad made their way into the house, upstairs, where my mom eventually walked in and caught them. It wasn't some teenage girl trying to seduce a grown man. It was the exact opposite, and she'd spent years in therapy because of it. The way she described it, the way he made it feel loving, affectionate, like she was special, it obviously messed her up badly. It twisted her sense of what love and safety were supposed to be. And it all happened right under our roof, less than 12 hours before she, her sister, and her mother would get thrown out on the streets. I apologized to her from the bottom of my heart. I told her that I had her back, and if she ever decided she wanted to do something about it, legally or otherwise, that I would be here for her. She seemed grateful, but I could tell she had already decided long ago that pursuing justice wasn't something she thought she'd ever actually get. And for a while, I tugged that truth away too. I don't know why. Maybe it was just easier to keep pretending. Maybe part of me was still that scared 15-year-old kid who didn't know how to process what was happening. But now, I'm in my 30s. I'm a mother myself. I have a daughter. And it's like the rage that I've forced down for so many years has come flooding back to me all at once. I think about my own daughter, how innocent she is, how much she trusts me to protect her. And then I think about what my father did to someone only a few years older than her. I think about how my own mom covered it up, lied about it, turned the victim into the villain. I think about how easily they let me believe it all, and it makes me sick. It's been tearing me apart lately. I know if something even remotely close to this happened to my child, there's no force on earth that could stop me from burning everything down just to get justice for her. It was easy to bury it before because, well, I had learned from the best. My parents were masters at pretending everything was fine, smiling through gritted teeth, burying anything ugly deep enough that maybe you could convince yourself that it never happened. But becoming a mom rewired something fundamental in me. I can't look at my daughter and imagine letting her grow up around a man like that, or around people who would defend him. The worst part is, they still don't know that I know. I know that if I ever brought it up, my mom would immediately get defensive. She'd probably yell, tell me that the past is the past, that people change, that dragging this all up would only hurt the family. She'd act like I was crazy for even mentioning it. She'd protect him again, like she always has. And honestly, part of me wonders if it would even matter. I know my father hasn't changed. The anger that he's had since my childhood, his need for control. If anything, it's only gotten worse over the years. Sometimes I wonder, was she really his only victim? Or just the only one my mom happened to catch? And if she was the only one, does that even matter? Because it doesn't feel forgivable to me. I think about telling the rest of my family sometimes, my siblings, my extended family. But I know how that would go too. They'd all just call me dramatic. They'd downplay it, twist it, make it about my anger, not about what actually happened. They've done it before. Anytime I've spoken up about anything uncomfortable, they shut it down and shut me out. Like my voice is the real threat, not the actions that caused the damage in the first place. And so here I find myself, just stuck, holding a secret that I never asked for, carrying a rage that I can't seem to let go. I'm sharing this because I guess I just needed to get it out somewhere safe, somewhere someone might read it and understand. What would you do? Would you confront them? Would you set their whole fragile house of cards on fire? Or would you stay silent to keep the peace, knowing damn well that this peace isn't real anyway? I don't know. I just know I can't unknow it now. And I don't think I want to anymore. When I was 14, I was kind of living every teenager's dream. I was a big YouTuber. Think like 2 million subscribers big. My channel was blowing up faster than I could process. And I was pulling in more money per month than most adults I knew made in a year. I mean, there were months where I made over $50,000 at 14. I didn't grow up rich. We weren't poor either, but money was always a stressor in our household. So to suddenly be the one bringing in that kind of income felt surreal. Although my content focused mostly on video games, I wasn't just a kid posting gaming videos anymore. I was someone. I had fans, close friendships with other creators, a community, influence. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had a purpose. I was genuinely happy. But here's the part that other people don't see. The part that they don't tell you when you're going viral and trending and making everyone's feed on YouTube. I never really saw the money. Because I was a minor at the time, my mom said that it wouldn't be wise if I had access to all those funds. She insisted it would be safer if she handled the finances until I turned 18. She said she'd manage it, save for my future, help me invest, basically be the responsible adult. And because she's my mom, I trusted her. In hindsight, I see it for what it was though. Control, narcissism, manipulation. She would give me about $1,000 a month, which, yeah, for a 14-year-old sounds like more than enough. But when you're pulling in 50 times that and working to entertain millions of people, it doesn't quite feel right. Especially now, knowing that instead of saving it like she promised, she was burning through it. New furniture, trips, clothes, home renovations, all funded by my grind. Still, I kept going because the channel gave me a sense of identity, of meaning. But everything involved with that changed right around the time I turned 15. It's important to know that when you post content for an audience, you open yourself up in a way that not everybody experiences. Of course, there's a lot of positive that comes out of this, but it's the negative that hits so much harder. The criticism, the hate, the feelings that those things leave you with. At first, it's relatively easy to compartmentalize, but when your viewership grows, all that volatile stuff does too, at an exponential rate. Because of this, my mental health spiraled, and I mean hard. I developed anorexia, ended up being hospitalized for it. That pressure to keep posting, to perform, to be this upbeat, always-on creator for millions of people. It broke me. There's no rule book for becoming internet famous as a kid. There's also no safety net. There's no HR department for burnout or teenage eating disorders. So around then, I just disappeared from the internet. I stopped uploading, stopped engaging. I couldn't even look at my own channel without feeling sick. Everything I built started to crumble. The algorithm doesn't care about mental health, and my subscribers just seem to move on. Then, after nearly a year offline, I felt like I was ready to come back. I had ideas. I wanted to rebuild. But I made one of the dumbest decisions of my life. I tried downloading Adobe software for free. I got it from some sketchy site. I did this because I was broke, desperate, and likely stupid. Because I tried to cut a corner that I didn't have to, I got hacked. The hacker posted graphic content on my channel, stuff that I won't even describe because it was that bad. My channel got flagged immediately and was permanently banned. Just like that, years of work, gone. The worst part about this, I didn't even fight it at first. Although I thought I was ready to be back, I was mentally checked out after I hit that first hurdle, so I just let it happen. I told myself that I'd deal with it later, but later turned into months, and when I finally tried to appeal, YouTube shut me down quick. No channel, no recovery, no restart. Around the time that everything was crashing, that's when I found out my mom had spent most of the money that I'd made. I had to beg her for over a year to give me what was left, about $50,000. 1 month's revenue when I was at my peak. I knew it should have been more, but at the time I was so emotionally drained that I didn't even have the energy to be mad. I was just relieved to get something. Then I made another mistake. I blew it. Not all at once, but pretty fast. A car, bad habits, addictions. Basically, anything that gave me a small spike of dopamine. I was trying to numb the feeling of being a complete failure. I didn't want to think about how I'd gone from having everything at 14 to having nothing at 19. I kept telling myself I'd figure it out, that it wasn't that bad, but it was. When I was finally diagnosed with bipolar disorder, it explained a lot of things to me, but it didn't magically fix anything. I started drinking heavily. I burned bridges with people who genuinely cared. I alienated friends. I let my life become a blur of distraction and self-sabotage. And now, I'm in my 20s, still broke, alone, and I feel like a fucking loser. I know how pathetic that sounds. I hate even telling this. I'm not trying to throw myself a pity party. I genuinely hate feeling this way, but the truth is, I don't know what direction to go in anymore. I had a dream. I got to live that dream. And then I let it slip away. I wasted it. Not just because I made bad choices, but because I had no guidance, no support system. What I did have was a parent who saw me more as a paycheck than her own child. My mom still doesn't think she did anything wrong. She tells me I was too immature to handle that kind of money anyway. And maybe she's right. Maybe I would have messed it up either way. But it's hard not to think about how different my life could have been if she had actually helped me instead of helping herself. If someone had stepped in not to take control, but to mentor me, teach me, protect me. I think about the kid I used to be, posting late at night, editing for hours, obsessing over thumbnails and retention rates and comment sections. I was hungry back then. Not for fame or money though, but for connection, for something to make me feel like I mattered. And I did matter, for a while. But when you peak that young, it messes with your brain. Every job I've ever worked since has felt meaningless. Every attempt to start over feels like a downgrade. Like I've already done the best thing I'll ever do, and now it's long gone. I'm trying to believe that's not true, that I still have something left in me, that there's some second act waiting right around the corner. But right now, I don't see a way forward. I feel lost. I feel like I missed my one shot and now I'm just drifting through life, trying to convince myself that it wasn't all for nothing. If anyone's been through something similar, if you've climbed your way out of a hole you dug yourself into, I'd love to know how you did it. Because I'm not giving up. Not yet. But I'm really, really tired. And I just need to believe that life can still be good again. That I haven't completely wasted my potential. That maybe, even after the extreme highs and lows, that there's still a way that I can make something of myself.